Hey, everybody, this is Rory McDonald from MacDon and Associates coming to you with the next episode of Tuesdays with Rory. I have in the studio today a local Metro Detroit, and you're all over the United States, correct?
Correct.
Real estate investor. Super excited to have him on. I know some of you have been reaching out and asking questions about real estate investing, some of the things that and strategies that I have clients using right now. And so I thought I'm going to have Blake on, have him talk through what it is that you do and why you do it. So without further ado, everybody, Blake Weldon.
Excited to be here. I've enjoyed getting to know you the last couple of years. It's been fun to see you grow. And,
thanks, man.
You're killing it. I like it.
I appreciate it.
So I love watching your podcasts.
Yeah.
I know I'll never be able to live up to Brian Edwards, but a man can always try.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're one of the 6 people that watch it. You and Brian Edwards. Yeah.
I hear you.
I love it.
Well, I'm Blake Weldon, local real estate investor. Currently, I own 15 single-family homes, 2 apartment buildings totaling 18 doors, and invested in about 18 syndications, anywhere from Florida to Texas, Indiana, Michigan, a lot in Michigan.
Yeah.
Mostly Texas now as well. So I've been doing that really pretty heavily since, I would say, 2016, 2017.
Okay. Yeah. What, just so that people understand. So everybody out there, so, single family residence home, that is your typical, 2-bed, 3-bed, 4-bed, 5-bed ranch, colonial, whatever it might be. It's not attached to something else. It's not a condo. An apartment building, most of you know what apartment buildings are. It's one building that has multiple units within inside of it. And then finally, syndications are a group of investors that come together. Help me to understand this a little bit better too. It's a group of investors that choose to come together and work together as a means of purchasing, rehabbing, and then renting out the type of property that it is, whether it's a commercial building. I think you got involved in some ways with one in Texas that was
did a self-storage.
Self-storage, yeah.
Yes.
And then apartment buildings and things like that.
Most are apartment buildings from what you'll see.
Okay.
And yeah, you usually have, it's 1 or 2 people who are the general partners. And then everybody else who just invests money in it, it's completely passive for the LP, the limited partner. And I'm limited partners in 18 of these deals. Okay. So just collect the quarterly checks. Don't do anything at all. The returns usually average, I'd say 5 to maybe 8% cash on cash a year. The payoff usually comes with the refi or the sale, anywhere from usually 3 to 7 year range. Mm-hmm. And it's typically, from my experience, been like an 18 to 22% IRR. Okay.
So that's a lot of things. I'll let you guys take a second. Go ahead and pause it now, and you can Google all that Blake just said. No, that's okay. That's good. So what is it that led to you kind of getting into the real estate investing world?
Honestly, the thing you have to take it back to in my life, I was 12 years old, summertime. My aunt and uncle are moving across town. My parents rent out my brother and I for 4 weeks to my aunt and uncle to help them move. And they were a little bit of pack rats, stuff everywhere. So it was working 10, 12-hour days, 4 weeks in a row. And at the end of it, all my friends, they're out swimming, having the time of their life. It's summer. You only get, 8 weeks, 10 weeks? I spent 4 of them doing that. So at the very end, move's done. My uncle's like, all right, here you go. Here's $600 for the 4 weeks of work. And he goes, did you enjoy doing this? And I was like, no, I did not want to do this at all. I hated it. So he's like, well, you want to know the difference between rich people and everyone else? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he goes, rich people make their money work for them. Everyone else works for their money. Did you like working for your money? No. He's like, well, then let's make your money work for you. That's when he had me read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that, I think, at 13, and it would completely change my entire perception. Mm-hmm. And then within that year, he told me to take that money. I saved up my birthday money, my Christmas money that year, had $1,200, used it, said, all right, here's my $1,200. We created a stock account, invested in Dell. And that was back when the tech stuff was just taken off.
Yeah.
So it doubled, split. Next thing you know, I had like $6-7 grand at like 14 years old. And I thought I was Daddy Warbucks.
Yeah.
Fast forward, continued to invest passively, ended up setting up a Roth IRA, put all of it into Apple stock back when it was like $35 a share.
Yeah.
Ended up actually turning that into a couple $100,000, doing nothing. Pure luck.
Yeah.
I don't think I could imitate that today if someone asked me to. It was just right place, right time. But that's kind of what got the hook in the vein. And, always continued to track real estate and Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Then I would say it was 2012, I opened up a captive insurance business. 3-4 years into that, I kind of realized I was more so just a branch manager with freedom of schedule, and decided I wanted to really own something of my own. That was 100% mine. Nobody could control, manipulate, change anything in regard to what I had. And I'm like, the best way to do that is through real estate. So I pretty much opened myself up to the universe and said, I want to invest in real estate. Started talking to people about it. Got referred to a guy who's downriver. He actually owns a property management company. His name's Josh Sterling. He owned at that time like 120 single family homes, owned multiple apartment buildings. And I'm sitting here with this guy, and I'm just like, hey, what would you do if you were in my shoes? So this was probably 2014, 15. And he said, save up some money. At that time, I was making really good money through my captive insurance agency. And he goes, save up as much as you can, utilize that and start buying some single family homes. And so we actually talked through a process. At that time, I was still too scared to do it. I had the money I could have. I was still just didn't want to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So it was about 2-3 years after we had that lunch where an opportunity came to me from a wholesaler, and he's like, hey, I have a house for you. You need to buy it. So I reluctantly bought this house. Like as soon as I said yes, I completely regretted it. But I had been telling this guy and been saying for 2 or 3 years, I'm getting into real estate.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt guilted into buying this house. I had no idea what I was doing. So next thing you know, 2 weeks later, after having some stuff done to it, I list it on Zillow.com. Had no idea what that was really until that point. And hundreds of people showed up wanting to rent this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this was actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
I didn't even have the tenant placed in there, and I already had another house under contract. I was like, I'm like, this is it. Next thing you know, I had, 2 months later, I had 5 houses. The next year, bought another 5. It just kind of snowballed from there. And then I got the opportunity to buy the 2 apartment complexes, which those are the best buy of my life to this point, no question. But, had to start small, had to be guilted into getting that first one, and then the rest was history.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it seems like everybody that I've talked to, their journey, even getting into like real estate, even, or just owning a business, somehow goes through the channel of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki. Like it just is what it is, like the Bible of investing.
100%.
Like it's an excellent book, and you can probably buy it. It's like $1.50 right now on Amazon or something stupid.
I'm sure.
But no, I think that's amazing. So your big thing right now and what it is that you're investing in real estate, because there's a lot of ways that people go. They can go and they can purchase a home and they can rent the home out, which is what you're primarily doing. They can go and they can get right into commercial real estate investing, which is a whole different world than single family. And then there's also, and this is a word that has been in our the Metro Detroit dictionary, it seems like, for the last 20 years, is this word flip. I want to flip a house. I'm a flipper. I want to go flip things. Okay, well, all right. Do you flip homes too, or are you primarily looking at this from the standpoint of, nope, I buy these homes as an intent to keep them and rent them out?
That's a great question. I get a lot of people ask me about that, because flipping was a huge fad, and you had all those workshops, you have all the infomercials will teach you how to retire in 2 years, and it's all came back to flipping. I am friends with some flippers, and most of them are no longer flipping. I have flipped 2 houses, and each one I regret that I flipped it. I wish I still owned it to this day. Whenever I drive by the streets, which happens quite often, it's with sadness. Yeah, because I wish I still owned them. Flipping's great if you need it to make a living, because when you flip an average house, I'd say most that I've seen, you make anywhere from 25 to like 40, maybe 50,000 is the average. Yeah. You're making it one time. You're exposing yourself to the highest rate of taxes, ordinary income plus the 12% for selling a house with under 1 year.
Yeah.
So you're taxed at a very high rate.
Capital gains.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you own a house for 366 days, the taxation becomes significantly different. Depending on your income level, it can be as low as really most pay 10%.
Mm-hmm.
That's it on the profits if you own it for 366 days. Well, if you're flipping a house, you're not going to keep it for 366 days. So you're getting taxed really hard and you're making good money. But my goal with real estate was long term. And the nice thing with my single family homes or my apartments, for example, is I make money 4 different ways. I get my cash flow. That's my profit over expense every single month. I get the principal pay down. So I have loans on it every single time I make a payment, especially with my loans. I've utilized mostly 15-year loans. The principal pay down's 50% of my payment. So if my payment's $4,500, $2,200 is kind of on paper what I just put in my pocket.
Yeah.
Then you've got the depreciation schedule, which on your taxes offsets passive income. And then you get your appreciation, which in the last 2-3 years has been a significant factor.
Yeah.
I don't bank on that. That's been a really nice bonus, but at the same time, it's also blessing and a curse because it's making things more expensive to buy now.
Yeah.
But again, when you tell me I can make money 4 ways versus and almost have no taxation, that's the other cool thing about the amount of real estate I now own. I don't pay taxes anymore. Any taxes I pay up front, I get them all back at tax time anyways. And that's just the power of having as much real estate as I now own. Early on, that wasn't the case the first couple of years. It also helped once I was able to move myself to the real estate professional tax status, which you know about, but that helps. That you can do once you have probably 5 to 10 houses.
Yeah, I gotcha. So when it comes to the rental side of things, and that being what you primarily focus on, obviously there's these 4 ways that you just mentioned of how it is that you're getting paid on these homes. When it comes to finding the right home, what is it that you're looking for? Like there's houses we can look right now, and right now the inventory is unbelievably low, which is you're coming back to the increase in how much homes are going up. There's just nothing on the market, first of all. And then inflation's insane. So like the price of the dollar is already lower. And then on the top of that, there's just nothing out there. So demand is incredibly high because there's no supply. So finding the right house though, what is it that you're looking at? Like you're seeing 50 houses that come through. There's some that come on every single day. What is Blake Weldon, this investor, looking at in a home, numbers wise, as a means of like, yep, that's a good buy. Yes, I'm going to jump on that. Or no, I'm not even going to bother going to look at it. The numbers don't work out. How does that work?
The 30-second approach that I take to it is the 1% rule. And for those who don't know what the 1% rule would be, if I was buying a house for $150,000, I knew it needed about $20,000 in rehab. That would be all in cost would be $170,000. The 1% rule means I need to have that rent for $1,700. That is what I generically used. It's kind of tweaked it a little bit with interest rates going up, but it's still generically, if it passes that test, I'm 100% interested. If it doesn't meet that, if I was buying a rental in an area I knew appreciation was going to be higher, would I sacrifice and go lower than that number? Definitely would, depending on, again, the market and the city.
I gotcha. So it just comes down to shooting for 1%, but if appreciation has the ability to change that, then it might be worth it, depending on what you're getting the house for too at that point.
Yeah, and that just helps eliminate a lot of the garbage before you waste your time really analyzing the deeper deals that you have a likelihood of possibly purchasing.
Sure.
If I'm looking at a house and it's $300,000 and I know it will only rent for $2,000 a month, I'm not even glancing at the house.
Yeah, that makes sense. So with that being said, you know what it is that you're looking for. You communicate this to real estate agents, wholesalers. You're looking at it on your own. Family member comes to you and says, hey, my neighbor's selling their house. I told them that you might be interested, right? Like where is it that you're finding majority of these deals? And for anybody out there who's listening, is there a place where you would suggest them or point them as a means of leaning on somebody who's a professional or somebody who is an investor, a fellow investor, or whatever that might mean. The reason why I bring this up is because wholesaling is like huge right now. It's crazy. We had a family friend of ours, right? Their kid reached out to you and reached out to me and was asking questions about, what I want to get into this wholesaling thing. Listen, I can take a house and sell it and make money off of selling it. And it's just like, for those of you who don't know, what wholesaling is getting a property under contract. I find this house. Here's the house. I find this house. I get it under contract for $100,000, and my client is happy because they're selling the house for $100,000. But I take this same house and I sell it to Blake for 120. The seller makes 100. Blake is happy because he got the house at a discount at 120, but I'm taking the extra $20,000 and I'm putting it in my pocket. And it has a tendency to just be like kind of a really shady way of going about doing business. And some people do a really good job of being upfront and taking care of their clients in that way. I just look at them. It's kind of scary, but the recipient as an investor, it's kind of one of those things you look at and you go like, hey, this isn't falling on me. I'm just buying a house.
Yeah. I don't know the seller. I will say off wholesaling, 95% of wholesalers I've met over the last 7-8 years, 95% of them are gone usually within a year, 2 years at the max. There's a couple bigger players out there, the sharks or whales. They are making, some of them hundreds of thousands a month, and they have marketing budgets that are 20, 30 grand a month. Yeah. That's how they're finding their leads. So it's a really tough space to play in. And let's be honest, with the market the way that it is, nobody should be selling their house via wholesale. It makes no sense. They should reach out to you and say, hey, what's my house worth? Can you sell it for me? The only advantage to, and I think how they get people to do the wholesale deals is, hey, you can be out of this house in 2 weeks. Yeah. And when people in tough situations make under the fire and it never pans out well for them, leaving a lot of money on the table, a lot of meat on that bone. Yeah. So I did buy my first few houses via a wholesaler. They were gone within a year, so I got a couple deals from them. But to go back to your question about how am I finding deals, I've gotten them every way imaginable. The wholesaler, I've had a couple realtors reach out. I've had the family friend call me and say, hey, this deceased family member, would you buy this house? So I bought them all those ways. The majority of the way that I've bought my single family homes is through a really investor friendly realtor that I know who's local to me, now a good friend of mine. And I'll use him. And we've had days where we've gone out, looked at 10 houses, thrown together 4 or 5 offers, had 2 responses, closed on 1, sometimes 2. Yeah. So he is an investor friendly agent, I would say, like you. And he's how I've bought, I would call it, more than 50% of my homes. Yeah. And he actually just reached out to me last week, and he had 2 houses that possibly were coming up. He took me through, gave me a first look at them, and I made an offer on both houses. So he's using a professional, an investor friendly real estate agent is 100%, I would say, the best way I'd recommend. Every other way, you're just kind of throwing some stuff on a wall, maybe seeing if it will stick. So that's the way that I prefer myself. Yeah, no, I gotcha. And here's the other thing too. I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, why is this guy on here saying he's not using Rory? Where do you live? I live over in Livonia. Okay. And I live in Richmond, Michigan, right? Do you know where that is? It's north of here. I'm just kidding. Probably an hour. 40 minutes. Yeah. Okay. It's far. It's about an hour from you. That's an hour from Livonia. And here's the other thing too, and this comes back to it. Like, I don't find any offense with you working with a real estate agent that's other than me. Here's my thing is working with a professional, first of all, who knows what they're doing. 2, somebody who is investor minded. And 3, somebody who knows that market well, right? Like if that guy's from that area, reality is he's going to know what a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot ranch is going to rent out for, because he probably knows the person who's renting the one down the street. Like it's just reality. It's something that's real that happens. So people who are more, and this is something we've talked about too, like in the Macomb area, in the Clinton Township area, Macomb Township, Harrison Township, St. Clair Shores, like this is my wheelhouse. I know this better than anyone. And then as you make your way north to my home in Richmond, it's not a huge rental area, but there's
There's people who buy them. It's just not like it is down here, close to 94, close to the city, things like that. So, yeah, that's just to reiterate what it is you're saying. We see houses all the time that are coming on the market. Sometimes we have them listed. Sometimes it's an agent in our office that has it coming up on the market. And it's really easy for us to go, hey, I got a guy who's interested, whether that's an investor or somebody who is purchasing as an opportunity to homestead that property and live in it. Yeah. And people are always thinking through that lens. Yeah.
Yeah. If I was buying my first house, second house right now, I would 100% need to rely on someone like you or who I do, Steve. And that would be, Rory, tell me, what does this rent for and how much do I need to put into it to make it rent ready? You're going to know that right off the rip. Early on, I had a semi idea, but it always felt good whenever Steve would say, yeah, I 100% agree. And now when we go and look at houses, we both know exactly what the most I'm going to pay for it. I don't even have to really bring it up. He knows. And then he also knows exactly, based off of the work that I've done, how much it's going to cost for the rehab budget. So we're both always on the same page. And again, if it was early on, I would solely rely on him to be able to tell me how much I should pay and what it should rent for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know that.
Right. And that's a good way to put it. We're getting up on 22 minutes here. I don't want to make people wait too much longer.
Okay.
But one of the things that kind of the last thing that I want to bring up, and I know we've had a conversation revolving around this too, because I am obviously very focused on trying to invest and get into this world. And we've had discussions revolving around exactly that. And you always tell me the exact same thing. You just got to do it. You just got to go. You just got to do it. Is that a normal, like you kind of mentioned your background of going like, hey, I kind of put this off. And then finally, when I found it, I had to do it. I did it. And it like, that was the gateway drug, right? Like now I'm going down a waterfall and drinking through a fire hose because this stuff is great. For anybody out there who's like, yeah, I'm interested in doing this. I'm just sitting here waiting, Like I'm thinking about every property that comes across. I'm running the numbers and the numbers work, but like, I don't know. I'm not sure. What would your suggestion be to anybody out there who is in a similar spot to you were back in 2016? I think you said it was.
Well, I'd go back and I'd say, the common term in the real estate investor world that we make fun of the people who haven't pulled the trigger for is analysis paralysis. They'll look, and they talk themselves out of in every way possible. They just talk themselves out of it because they're scared to just pull that trigger. And everybody you talk to still remembers their first deal. It's usually a similar story to me. Like, I didn't really want to do it. I felt forced. I just did it. And then it was a huge snowball effect. And it was the best decision of my life to this point in regard to investing or financially. So for anybody who's thinking about it, if it were me, I would get plugged in with someone like you if they're looking to invest in anything locally. And I would say, I'm looking to do this. Here's the numbers that I have. This is what I want. And find a way, even if numbers seem a little bit tighter than you really want, buy the property, start figuring out, you'll figure out this is fantastic. This was the best decision of my life. And then the snowball effect will begin for them.
Yeah.
And they'll continue down that path of the financial freedom that now with the amount of properties I own, that has enabled me to be in the spot that I am today.
Yeah. And to make it clear to everybody, the spot that you're in today, where are you at?
I consider myself semi-retired. I still own the captive insurance business. With the amount of properties that I own, at this point in time, I don't ever have to work another day of my life. I only get involved in things that I really want to. I probably worked maybe 4 or 5 days this whole year.
Yeah.
And those 4 or 5 days were things that I chose that I wanted to do. And so, I mean, that was 6-7 years ago. I was in the polar opposite spot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
how old were you when you got started?
I was low 30s. It would have been, I just turned 38. So I would have been 2016, really.
Yeah. So in the last 7 years, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Force. Yeah. Cause it's 2023. In the last 7 years, you are a 38-year-old almost, I mean, you're essentially, you're retired is what the way that you're describing to me. You're saying semi-retired, but you're essentially retired.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. At 38 years old, knowing that you don't have to rely on the place that you previously worked at, let's say as a, the 401k that's coming through. You don't have to worry about a pension. You don't have to think through the idea of where are my investments, my mutual funds and all that other stuff. Where is that at? You can look at it every day. You can drive down the street and go touch it. You can, all of that stuff. And you're a 38-year-old retired guy.
Yes. And speaking to that, I probably moved 7-8 years ago. I had 90% of my retirement funds in the market. I'm now down to like less than 10%. I've moved almost all of my retirement money into real estate. And if you look at what I have now versus if I continued that same path, it's a significant difference.
Yeah.
By doing it the real estate route.
Right. And you have full control of it too. Like that's the other piece behind it for me. Like I trust my investment guy. I trust him. He's a buddy of mine, but like at the same time, I'd rather be responsible for losing this and responsible for making it,
Correct. I mean, yeah, the amount of people who, let's say, had 100,000 in the market 2 years ago, and now it's at 70. And who knows where it's going to be a year from now, where I can pretty much tell you like clockwork where the money I have in my brick and mortar is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, dude. I think we should end on that. The retired 38-year-old. That's what I'll title this.
I mean, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still thankful every day. And I know things can change. But it's, again, I only set my alarm maybe twice a year now, and that's because I have to catch a flight. And I wake up every day with a smile on my face, laughing. It's a lot of fun. And again, it's 100% been enabled via real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff, dude. I appreciate you coming in, being a part of the podcast and sharing your story and your background and what led you to this, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. I always love shooting the breeze with you. So
yeah, I love it, dude. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of Tuesdays with Rory. Super thankful for you guys. But besides that, you have a blessed day.